What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with the overall market, what you should be watching for going into this week and tomorrow. I'm also going to talk about some big earnings coming out and some new economic data. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. So anyways, let's talk about what's going on with the market. One of the most important stocks for this week is going to be Nvda stock. We're going to be watching what happens during its earnings because that's going to dictate where this market ends up going over the next couple of trading days. Now, please remember that this week is going to be a short week thanks to Thanksgiving weekend. The market's going to be closed on Thursday, and we're going to just see a very short trading week with less volatility for the week, with less volume, and we'll be watching to see how this continues. Now, looking at the way Nvidia is looking for the time being, it's very tight in this range, but we're going to be watching to see if this support holds as it's getting very, very tight. Now, one of the reasons why Nvidia is so important is because not only does it affect the whole market, but it's also going to have its earnings on Tuesday after the market closes. So I'm going to be paying very close attention to this. This is going to be huge, and this could cause the market to try to hold up, or it could cause the market to get a rug pull. So we'll be watching this very, very carefully. But please note that Nvidia has pumped quite a bit approaching this earnings already. So, you can interpret that any way you want, whether this is a trap or not. But so far, it's holding up, so we'll be watching it very, very carefully. As far as the broader market goes, some of these technical indicators are becoming very greedy. The puts and call option positioning is in extreme greed mode. We're seeing a lot of puts being closed, and the buyers have stepped in. But once we hit these extreme levels, this is when you want to be very careful because this could signal that the market's in a topping process. The market volatility is neutral right now. We saw the VIX drop quite a bit. We're approaching some critical supports very close to where we are right now. On top of this, other indicators are very greedy. The junk bond demand is very neutral. And on top of this, I just want to mention the market momentum is becoming greedy as the fear and greed index has hit greed. And you want to be careful when the market becomes too greedy. This is when you need to just be watching to see how things look. Uh, Moving forward at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, we have the 3-month and the 6-month bill auctions reports coming out. I'm going to be watching those very carefully to see how they look. This could cause even more volatility. So, anyways, let's talk about Nvidia. What can Nvidia do for the markets? For now, Nvidia is holding up. There's no sign of this breaking down, and the technicals are looking quite bullish unless we see this thing break and hold below 490. If we lose 490, this could, you could maintain this like channel to the downside right over here, which could be forming like a potential flag right over here. But if we lose 490, I would turn a bit more bearish, but it might try to hold up at least going into its earnings. If it keeps pushing, gets one more push for 500, the market could hold up just for another temporary period of time. We'll be watching 500 as critical resistance. If we break this, we could start pushing up to like 508, even like 510 plus. For now, we're just in the middle, so we'll be watching it very carefully to see which way it goes. And I think earnings is going to be massive, massive, massive for how it ends up moving. Generally, before earnings, we don't see it drop that hard. Generally tries to hold up a bit. So this might try to help the market to some extent. But I do want to note that we already pumped so much approaching its earnings, so I don't expect it to pump insanely hard. I don't see it pumping like another, 30 plus points from here. I think it's just going to be very, very tight. I think that the real move is going to come right after its earnings. So we'll be watching that very carefully. For now, it's going to be range bound, in my opinion, between 490 and 500. And I think that it might just remain like that for the most part, but it could go a little bit higher or a little bit lower depending on where we break. But don't worry too much about Monday. Tuesday is when the real move is going to be made after the market closes. So we'll be watching that as well. SPY is quite boring, but I do have an opinion about what's going to happen. Even though we're very boring, if we lose 448, I'm going to turn bearish. If we manage to break 452, I turn bullish. We've been stuck here for 3.5 days, basically, the last 3.5 trading days. It was half of Tuesday, and then for pretty much all of Wednesday through Friday, we've been stuck between the range. So it's going to likely stay in this range for an extended period of time unless one of these levels break. And I think that there are two possibilities for the bigger move. I think the market is due for a pullback soon, and I think that we're going to get the pullback. But before the market pulls back, Nvidia and many tickers out there could try to bring one last pop before it happens for Monday. So we'll be watching to see if that happens. So just to make this clear, don't assume there's going to be a break if it doesn't happen. Don't assume we're going to tank if it doesn't happen either. That's why you want to be watching these levels. If we manage to get a break above 452, there could be one last push for 455 to 456 to fill the gap from before this thing rejects. And if we fail to break 452 and we end up breaking 448, then we could just pull back from here. So I'm looking at the two most probable moves being this. Either we get one last pop if we do try to break out thanks to Nvidia, one last pop like this for Monday/Tuesday, and then we just end up sinking down later on, maybe after the earnings. We just get a very healthy pullback for November before we get another December rally, right? This is just one possibility after we get like a big rejection. That's the first one. If we do get one more break to the upside, but in order for this to happen, we have to break 452. If we fail to do so, what if we just go straight below 448 immediately? Then I would turn bearish, right? If we kind of trade like this and we just see this thing lose 448 as soon as Monday, then I would automatically think that the move is ready and we're just going to start pulling back immediately. So that's the way I see it. Either we get one more pop, then we start to pull back, or this thing just starts pulling back from here. That's what I think is the most likely possibility. And in order to determine whether we're going to get one more pop and drop, or if we drop from here, don't worry too much about the move itself. Focus on the levels. Do we lose 448 first? If we lose that right off the bat, we're going to start sinking lower and the move to the downside is coming. Do we break 452 one more time to get one last push for Monday / even a part of Tuesday before the pullback starts? That's another possibility. It all depends on the levels, so we'll be watching this all very, very carefully. I do anticipate more volatility very soon. An argument could be made that there's a head and shoulders on SPY and we're about to sink. Others could say the opposite. As of right now, we're very flat and the market is very indecisive, so do not assume anything just yet. The 4-hour is still showing the development of a bearish divergence. We had it before and it ended up failing us, right? The last time this happened. So they don't always play out perfectly, but the majority of the time they do historically. So we'll be watching this. And this is just another indicator that could be used in addition to like other ones. On the daily time frame, we're also looking very decent right now. We're still trying to push higher, but we'll be watching this very carefully to see. On Nvidia, I want to call out Nvidia one more time. On the daily chart, we're still looking quite decent. Momentum is losing strength because of the fact that we're at this 500 resistance. So I don't expect it to like break out insanely hard. Resistance is getting tighter, but we could see Nvidia hold up temporarily before we get a big move after its earnings. All right, so we'll be watching this all very carefully. Now for just a couple more tickers, if you want to look at Tesla, we're going to be watching Tesla very carefully. There's a lot of negative news involving Elon Musk and such, and we could be forming an inverse cup and handle on the chart. So this looks like a cup here. This looks like a potential handle, and this would technically be a little bearish temporarily. So I think that we might get a very healthy pullback on Tesla, but I am still bullish for the markets for December. I want to be very clear. We might see Tesla, and if this thing manages to break 238, I could turn bullish. If we lose 230, I would turn bearish. I'm thinking that it's going to pop a bit and maybe make its way down to 230, and we might slowly see this descend just a little bit more, but it's just going to be another accumulation. We're just going to see institutions step in and start buying it up later on. So I think that by Monday/Tuesday, there could be one more pop and then a drop, or it could happen as soon as Monday. And I think that there might be a little downside coming soon. It's going to be okay, however, because Tesla is going to make a big comeback towards the end of this month and also going into December. So that's what I'm seeing. I think that we're going to be testing a 230 and just kind of trading around this. And we could lose it. If we do lose it, there could be like a little drop coming. So just be patient and we'll see how it goes from there. On the QQQ, if we're bullish, you want to see it break and hold above 388. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 382. We're kind of stuck in the middle going back and forth and back and forth. But if we end up losing 382, then I would turn more bearish. So we'll be watching that very carefully. I want to call out that on the daily chart of the QQQ, we happen to have this big gap down below, very close to 377. I think that might get filled in the future, but before it gets filled, Nvidia is going to dictate this thing. We could get another pop thanks to Nvidia. It could try to push up for like 388 and chop up here and then drop, or it could drop from where we currently are. This is going to depend on Nvidia and many other factors. So I'm thinking we'll either get one more pop up here, just like this, maybe retest 390, get very close to it. Then we start dropping, and we see this thing start to correct back down to below 382. I think that that's one of the most probable moves because the market should pull back before the December rally. Or, it kind of fails here and we end up losing 382 as soon as Monday or Tuesday, and we just start sinking and we get a very healthy pullback before the December rally. I think that these are the two main possibilities. When we're pop and drop or a drop from here, I am anticipating those as very probable outcomes. Now, last but not least, on trading view, I'm going to be talking about Apple stock. Apple is holding up quite nicely. There's a triple bearish divergence on it that's still developing, but there's no sign of this breaking down yet. Apple is becoming weaker, however, because it hit this very, very big potential pivot point around 190 to 191, and we're kind of stuck up here, right? It's getting very tricky for it to break out of this. So if we see this thing losing 188, we could see some downside if it ends up failing over there. And if it manages to hold up, then we'll be watching it as well. My gut prediction would be we kind of just range trade here for a little bit longer, and then we later on get some kind of like sell off. And I think that we might sell off towards 185 over the next week, maybe even below this. And it's going to be a very healthy pullback towards this imbalance down here, maybe going into like Friday before we get a really nice bounce. But I think that that's the most likely possibility. It could pop a little bit more before we end up getting the sell off, but I think that that's very probable. Anyways, so with that being said, guys, I went over the main five. I'm just going to be very quick since it's a Sunday. I know a lot of people are just want to be watching football or doing something else. For SoFi, I just want to call out that SoFi is not looking too horrible. We have a potential inverse head and shoulders like structure unless we end up, losing 6.5. To me, the daily looks very flat, not really doing a whole lot. But I think the downside coming to the markets could dictate SoFi, and there could be a move towards 6.5 again. So even though it has a potential inverse head and shoulders, I still don't fully trust that it's going to bounce from here. I think that it's going to form a flag, so it might retest 7.01 at the 20 EMA, then reject and make its way back down towards 6.5. So I do anticipate some downside. The IWM is holding up decently, but we're starting to see some weakness in the chart. And the reason why there's some weakness is because of the fact that if you look at the daily chart, we have this very tough resistance at this 200 EMA. So I'm thinking that Russell 2000 could try to pop a little bit and then reject, or it could reject from here. If we lose 174, I'm going to turn more bearish, and I think we're going to fill this gap down here. I predict that's going to happen, but we could get one more pump first and then a drop, or a drop from here initially. On top of this, if you look at Microsoft, this thing got a rejection on the daily chart. We have a bearish divergence. If this thing loses this 370 support, we need to officially lose it. I know we did close below it on Friday. We could pop from here and then start correcting just a bit towards 365, or we could drop from here. We're looking less strong than before, and I think that there's going to be a risk of some downside. If we look at Shopify, we have a bearish divergence, and this thing is losing some momentum. Watch resistance around 70. We might pop towards 70, then reject and retrace to fill this gap towards 62 over the next week to week and a half, or it could try to hold up for the time being. With AMD, it's going to react to whatever Nvidia's earnings is, might hold up approaching the earnings, but we're going to be watching 125 as resistance, and we could be forming a rising wedge right now. So you want to be very careful to see how this reacts after Nvidia's earnings. The VIX on the daily chart is continuing to sell off, but the VIX has dropped pretty hard over the last few days. It has a slight looking divergence on the MACD, but there's no sign of a bounce yet. So we'll be watching this carefully to see if it bounces. The dollar index is very flat, still dropping. It's looking more bearish, but it's becoming very oversold. And it has a slight bullish divergence, but no sign of a bounce yet. So we'll be very patient to see if it holds 103.5. It might drop a little bit more before this thing makes an attempt to bounce, but it's becoming more oversold in my opinion. For Coinbase, we have some tight resistance at 100. It might pop towards 100, could reject here and then start heading down. If we lose 94, then we could start sinking towards 89. If we hold this, then we could remain bullish. My goods tells me it pops and drops, or it drops from here. I think that Google finally got a rejection. We were talking about this potentially happening. There could be a backtest of 138 to 140, then a rejection, back down towards 133.5, or it could just reject right here towards 133.5. This is looking a bit more bearish. Amazon stock is looking very flat. Could push for this imbalance, a retest of 147, then a rejection towards 148 to 150, then a move back down. So a little bit of a pop and drop is very probable in my opinion. I think it's going to push a little bit more and then come back down towards 142. So a little pop and drop seems probable. For Meta, it's holding up decently, but one thing worth noting is that Meta could be forming a head and shoulders here that's slanted if we do get a rejection from here. So just be very careful. If we lose 362.6 or the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame, I'm going to turn more bearish. So we'll be watching to see if we get a pop and drop or if we drop from here. Watch it very carefully. The market's due for a healthy pullback, but we're not ready yet. We're going to be watching our levels for confirmation. So we'll watch for either another pop and then a drop, or for the market to start selling off from here. It's got to be one of those two. I think that the market might pull back for a week to a week and a half, but regardless of if we get a pop and drop or if we drop from here, I'm still very bullish for December. Okay, I'm just saying a healthy pullback before the December rally is what I am anticipating. So I want to be as clear as possible. And I just want to be honest. That's what I have for this video. Have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy your Sunday, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks again, and peace out.